Have you ever wondered why, just when your soul feels closest to peace, something unsettling suddenly stirs inside you? When your heart finally finds alignment, when your mind begins to quiet, when your spirit lifts into a higher state of awareness, right at that very moment, an invisible wave often crashes in. Thoughts you didn't invite, urges that seem foreign, a pull that shakes your stillness. And you ask yourself, why now? Why does desire rise so strongly the very second you're moving toward clarity? This is not an accident. It is not simply your body being restless or your mind drifting. It is something deeper, a vibrational interference. Every step you take toward higher consciousness awakens opposing forces that try to anchor you back down. It is as if the moment you tune your frequency to the higher realms, a counter frequency is sent to disturb you, to blur your perception, to dilute your focus. That invisible push against your spirit isn't random, it is designed. And here lies the uncomfortable truth. The closer you move toward the source of divine intelligence, the more noticeable the disturbances become. This isn't punishment. It is confirmation. You are becoming too luminous to be ignored. You vibrate differently. And systems built on lower frequencies feel threatened by that difference. They know your energy carries power, the power to shift rooms, to awaken others, to create ripples that extend far beyond your own life. And so, the interference comes, disguised as simple desire, but carrying within it an attempt to disconnect you from your higher self. Desire itself is not your enemy. It is raw, untamed energy, like lightning, like electricity. When directed with intention, it becomes creation, intimacy, expansion. But when hijacked, when provoked outside of sacred timing and true alignment, it can scatter you. It can short-circuit your spirit, leaving you feeling drained, fragmented, and less yourself. Have you noticed that after indulgence, whether in solitary pleasure or fleeting fantasies, relief fades quickly into emptiness? That emptiness is not weakness. It is evidence that you have been unplugged, even if only for a moment, from your original frequency. Tesla once said that to understand the universe, you must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And this is precisely the battlefield you find yourself in. Not one of flesh and blood, but of invisible fields, subtle currents, unspoken wars. The pressure you feel is vibrational resistance, an intelligent response to your awakening. The fact that you sense it so strongly is proof of how close you are to crossing thresholds you cannot yet fully see. So when these waves come, when impulses rise just as you reach clarity, do not mistake them as proof of failure. See them instead as proof of proximity. You are approaching a door, and the resistance is the lock that tests whether you are truly ready to walk through. You cannot take unresolved fragments of old frequencies with you into new dimensions of growth. That is why your hidden weaknesses, your past triggers, your buried patterns, all resurface at this exact point. The system is not attacking your strength. It is exploiting your unfinished wounds. But here's the revelation. You are not under attack because you are fragile. You are targeted because you are powerful. Only fertile soil attracts seeds. Only luminous souls attract resistance. You are not being tempted to destroy yourself. You are being tempted to distract yourself, to waste the sacred energy designed to propel you forward. Every desire, every fantasy, every sudden pull is less about pleasure and more about programming. Codes written into your unconscious, activated at the exact moment you step into new territory. If you've ever felt this cycle, the lift of prayer or meditation followed by a sudden flood of intrusive impulses, you are not broken. You are awakening. And the very fact that you can feel this war within is proof that your field is sensitive, alive, sacred. Sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is the antenna of the soul. It is what allows you to feel the higher realms, but it is also what makes you vulnerable to distortion. That is why awareness is your shield. You do not overcome by suppressing or by fighting yourself. You overcome by seeing clearly, by naming what is happening, by recognizing the difference between authentic desire and manufactured distraction. One liberates you, the other depletes you. When you learn to see the pattern for what it truly is, the grip loosens, and perhaps you've noticed something else. Each time you commit to rising, someone from your past suddenly reappears, or an old memory surfaces out of nowhere. That, too, is no accident. It is the system's last attempt to recycle your old codes, to convince you that you are still the same person you once were, that you haven't really changed. But if you pay close attention, you'll see the truth. The reason these ghosts appear now is because they are losing their hold. They come back louder, only because you are about to silence them forever. You were born not to be enslaved by your impulses, but to master them, to channel their fire into creation rather than collapse. And that mastery begins the moment you stop seeing your inner war as weakness and start seeing it as initiation. You are not losing ground. You are being refined. Every wave of interference is proof that you are approaching the threshold of your next dimension of being. So take a breath, anchor yourself, and remember this. You are not here to merely survive these impulses. You are here to transmute them, to turn noise into signal, to turn desire into sacred fire. That is the path of awakening, and this is only the beginning. There is a secret hidden inside every wave of desire that rises within you. It is not only about the body, nor merely about attraction. At its core, it is pure, creative force, a spark that was designed to bring forth life, to build bridges between souls, to open portals of intimacy where energy becomes union. This force is sacred, yet the moment it is pulled out of its natural harmony, it becomes noise. The same current that could illuminate worlds can, when misused, cause short circuits of the soul. That is why so often after a fleeting pleasure comes silence, doubt, heaviness. It is not shame alone, it is vibrational loss. Something precious escapes, leaving behind only the shadow of what could have been creation. Few ever recognize this for what it truly is, not sin, not weakness, but technology, spiritual manipulation in disguise. You are not being tempted simply for enjoyment. You are being programmed, distracted, redirected. Systems that thrive on low vibrations know exactly where your gates are. They do not attack at random. They strike where you are most open, most fertile, most alive. And they do it not because you are weak, but because you are strong. Every time you step closer to expansion, you'll notice how suddenly the air thickens. Noise multiplies. Old patterns creep back in. The timing is too precise to be coincidence. It happens the very moment you are about to take a step forward, as though the invisible field itself resists your progress. But here's the truth. This resistance is not the end. It is the sign of a threshold. Every new dimension of growth requires purification. You cannot rise carrying remnants of the old frequency. Sexual energy, in its pure form, is not meant to enslave you. It is meant to empower you, to lift you, to weave your soul into deeper connection with both the divine and with others. But when you disconnect it from its true purpose, when you chase relief without alignment, you trade sacred fire for smoke. Your body may feel satisfied, but your soul remains silent. And in that silence, confusion creeps in. Think of it this way. Each time you surrender to an impulse that doesn't align with your higher purpose, you send a signal into the field around you. That signal doesn't vanish. It connects you with frequencies that match the impulse. This is why guilt follows indulgence, why clarity collapses, why your spirit feels heavy after what seemed so pleasurable. You didn't just act. You tuned yourself to a frequency that does not serve you. And that frequency drains you, bit by bit. But this battle is not about morality. It is not about rules. It is about energy. You are a conductor of light, created to radiate a unique spiritual signature. Every distraction is designed to distort that signal. And the truth is, the system doesn't even need to destroy you to succeed. It only needs to keep you cycling in place, repeating old patterns, never breaking through, forever circling, just shy of freedom. Yet inside, you lives the code of awakening. That is why you feel this inner war so intensely. That is why impulses rise stronger just when you try to rise higher. You are not being broken. You are being tested. Not tested to prove your worth to anyone else, but tested to refine your frequency so that you may step through the threshold unshaken. And there is something else to notice. Every time you think you are being attacked, pause and ask yourself, what if you are being filtered instead? What if these moments of turbulence are not there to push you back, but to cleanse you of what cannot follow you forward? The chaos you feel is not collapse. It is reordering. A field cannot shift to a new frequency without instability. That is why everything feels like it is falling apart when you are actually rising. So do not let the noise convince you that you are failing. The pressure is proof of proximity. The heavier it feels, the closer you are. If you were truly stagnant, there would be no resistance at all. The fact that you feel the pull is evidence of movement, evidence of change. This is where many give up. One step before the curve, they collapse into old patterns. They confuse sabotage with relief, reaction with reward. They believe they were never meant for freedom because the fight feels too heavy. But the heaviness only proves the door is near. And if you can withstand it, if you can hold steady when everything shakes, you will discover what lies beyond. Is clarity so sharp, so pure, that the noise can no longer touch you? When you realign your vibration, when you refuse to collapse back into the cycle, you send out a new signal. And just as Tesla knew, a receiver only picks up what it is tuned to. Change the frequency, and the entire signal shifts. That is why every decision matters, not as punishment, but as programming. Each choice reconfigures your field, either anchoring you to the old or aligning you with the new. The war you are in is ancient. It stretches across dimensions. Your soul is not just fighting impulses. It is reclaiming its inheritance. This is why the battle feels so much larger than you. Because it is. Every moment you hold your frequency steady, you are not just protecting yourself. You are influencing the invisible field around you. You are disturbing old codes that have controlled countless lives. Your refusal becomes a ripple, and ripples become waves. So the next time you feel that sudden storm inside you, remember, you are not being tempted because you are powerless. You are being targeted because you are powerful. The system fears not your fall, but your rise. It fears the day you realize that the very energy used against you can be transformed into your greatest weapon. And that day, my friend, is near. Have you noticed how silence feels different after you give in to certain impulses? It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of absence, as if something sacred within you slipped out through an invisible crack, leaving behind only shadows where there should have been light. This is why, after moments of indulgence, instead of deeper satisfaction, you often feel doubt, procrastination, guilt, or even a subtle distance from your own soul. That sensation is not your imagination. It is vibrational decay. It is the evidence that energy, meant to elevate you, has been redirected. You were never created to live at that lower frequency. At your core, your design is luminous. You were built to carry clarity, to radiate truth, to vibrate at a level that brings healing, not only to yourself, but to the spaces you enter. And so when you connect with something beneath that nature, your body may still feel a rush, but your soul screams in silence. It is a mismatch between who you are and what you are temporarily tuned into. That dissonance hurts, not because you're guilty, but because your true essence knows you are meant for more. Think of your mind as a magnetic field. Every choice you make strengthens or weakens it. Every indulgence out of alignment is like reducing the current, making it easier for confusion, guilt, and repeated patterns to find their way in. Systems that observe you know this. They don't need to attack openly. They only need to trigger your memories, activate your old codes, and wait for you to sabotage yourself. This is the real battlefield, subtle, invisible, yet profoundly powerful. But here lies the hope. No field is permanent. Energy can always be recalibrated. Frequencies can always be reset. And the first step is awareness. The battle is not about erasing desire, but about understanding its sacred nature. Sexual energy is not a flaw. It is one of the most powerful forms of creative energy in the entire universe. The problem is not the energy, it is the misdirection of it. Suppress it, and it implodes. Waste it in fantasy, and it dissipates. Transform it, and it becomes sacred fire. This is why, throughout history, spiritual traditions have emphasized practices like fasting and solitude, not as punishment for the body, but as tools to silence the noise so the true signal can be heard. When you fast, you are not starving yourself. You are feeding from a higher source. You are training your field to recalibrate, to shift nourishment from the external to the internal. In solitude, you are not alone. You are expanding. The silence becomes fertile ground where your consciousness downloads clarity it could never hear in the chaos. And this is why distractions are constant. The system knows the danger of a human being who is fully aligned, who is no longer enslaved by noise. That is why impulses flood your mind at the exact moment you try to rise. Why screens, endless connections, and artificial desires dominate modern life. Because the further you drift from yourself, the easier you are to manipulate. But if you dare to pause, to face the pain rather than escape it, to hold still instead of reacting, something extraordinary happens. The noise begins to thin, and beneath it, truth emerges. And truth has a weight, unlike anything else. It doesn't crush you. It lifts you. It orders the chaos. It doesn't add heaviness. It dissolves it. That is why every true moment of alignment feels lighter. Not because life is suddenly easier, but because you are vibrating closer to your original frequency. Most people try to fight their impulses with willpower alone. But willpower is not enough if you do not also change the environment that feeds the cycle. You cannot heal in the same frequency that wounded you. Sometimes transformation requires separation, cutting ties, closing doors, saying no. Not out of weakness, but out of protection for your field. When you step away from what feeds distortion, you make room for your original signal to shine again. And then there is the most dangerous distortion of all, shame. Unlike impulses, shame does not shout. It whispers. It hides in your thoughts. It weaves itself into your memories until you start to believe the lie that your mistakes define you. Shame tells you that because you've fallen, you are broken beyond repair. that your destiny has already been decided by your failures. But this is not truth. Shame is a prison, and prisons only function in darkness. The moment you bring light to shame, it loses its grip. The moment you declare openly, "My soul is not for sale," you release a frequency into the field that breaks invisible chains. And here is the paradox. Your greatest spiritual authority is not built by never falling. It is built by rising after the fall. Your scars do not disqualify you. They become the very marks of your awakening. The system does not fear your perfection. It fears your resilience. It fears your refusal to stay silent after being knocked down. The truth is this: you are not under pressure because you are weak. You are under pressure because you are too strong to ignore. The system senses what you are becoming, and it trembles. Every attempt to pull you back is not proof that you are losing. It is proof that you are rising. And the day you stop hiding, the day you stop seeing yourself as broken, and instead see yourself as the warrior you truly are, the field shifts. The old codes dissolve. The energy once used against you becomes fuel for transformation. So take this moment and let it sink in. Every impulse, every battle, every silence filled with shame was never meant to end you. It was meant to awaken you. It was meant to show you that within you lies the very code that unravels the system. Not the code of resistance alone, but the code of transmutation, the power to turn weakness into wisdom, distraction into clarity, pain into compassion. And once you begin to see this, once you stop hiding and start radiating, your presence itself becomes a weapon of light. The very field that once tried to manipulate you now bends under your vibration. This is the birth of the untouchable version of you, the self no longer confined by the old frequency, but vibrating so strongly that darkness has no place left to hide. There comes a moment when the pressure feels unbearable, when confusion clouds your clarity, when the pull of old desires resurfaces with such precision that it feels as if something unseen has studied every corner of your soul. And in truth, it has. The invisible system knows your triggers. It knows which memories still vibrate low, which wounds remain unhealed, and it presses on them like keys on a piano, hoping to play you into submission. But here is the secret it hopes you never discover. The very intensity of the storm proves you are standing at the edge of transformation. Every time you raise your vibration, the field around you reacts. Old structures shake. Familiar illusions surface. It is not because you are failing. It is because you are disturbing invisible architectures that thrived on your former frequency. The closer you move toward liberation, the more chaotic the resistance becomes. Yet that chaos is nothing more than the death rattle of an old identity. It fights because it knows it cannot survive what you are becoming. And this is why the system's last weapon is not lust, not distraction, but shame. Because if it can convince you that your mistakes are your identity, it wins without a fight. Shame whispers that you are too far gone, too flawed, too incapable of rising. But listen carefully. Shame only speaks so loudly because it fears the moment you will finally see it for what it is, an illusion. The truth is, you are not defined by the fall. You are defined by the rise. Every scar is not evidence of defeat, but proof that you have endured battles others would not have survived. This is why your awakening terrifies the system, not because you are perfect, but because you are relentless, because you refuse to stay down, because you have begun to realize that your greatest weapon is not your strength, but your focus, your decision to keep moving, even when every force tries to hold you back. That decision, that unshakable resolve, is what makes you untouchable. So let me tell you this. You are not being tested to prove your weakness. You are being refined to reveal your power. The interference is not punishment. It is preparation. Every wave of desire, every whisper of shame, every storm of confusion is training you to master the most sacred energy within you. You are learning to transmute it, to reclaim it, to transform it into the fire that will fuel your purpose. And here is the mystery revealed. When you truly align, when you refuse to collapse, when you consciously reprogram your frequency, something extraordinary happens. The very energy that once drained you becomes the current that carries you higher. What once pulled you into cycles of emptiness begins to serve as raw material for your awakening. You no longer fight against desire. You direct it. You no longer run from impulses. You channel them. And in that moment, you step into your original design, a being of light, vibrating with such clarity that darkness cannot touch you. But you must remember this battle is not only yours, it is ancestral, generational, dimensional. You are standing in a war that began long before you, and by rising, you are breaking codes that have enslaved countless others. That is why the resistance feels so fierce, because you are not just liberating yourself, you are shifting the field for everyone connected to you. Your healing is not private. It radiates outward, touching lives you may never even know. So the next time you feel the pull, the next time you sense the storm, pause and remind yourself, this is not weakness. This is sacred ground. The battlefield of your soul is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to awaken you. Every choice you make is not just about now. It is about rewriting the frequency of your entire lineage. You are not just breaking cycles. You are setting a new code. And when the whispers of shame try to silence you, speak back. Declare with authority. My soul vibrates with intention. My field is pure. I am expanding. These are not empty affirmations. They are vibrational codes. Words shape frequencies, and frequencies reprogram reality. When you speak them consciously, the field responds. Invisible chains begin to loosen. The noise begins to collapse. The universe leans in, aligning with the signal you have chosen to emit. Understand this. Awakening is not a single event. It is not one victory, one breakthrough, one decision. It is a continual movement, a rhythm of rising, a steady pulse of choosing alignment again and again until your frequency stabilizes beyond disruption. You will still feel pressure, but it will no longer control you. You will still sense temptation, but it will no longer define you. And when you reach that place, you will realize that the enemy never feared your fall. It feared your rise. And now you are rising. So take this message not as information, but as activation. You are not watching by accident. You are here because your soul is ready to cross the threshold. Do not give up one step before the curve. Do not confuse resistance with failure. Pressure is not proof of weakness. It is proof of your strength. And when you feel that inner war, know this: you are not being destroyed. You are being reborn. From this moment forward, walk with clarity, walk with intention, walk with a vibration so strong that every shadow crumbles before your light. This is your time. This is your code. This is your rebirth. And as Tesla once said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So vibrate so strongly, so consciously, that darkness has no choice but to disappear. Do not retreat. Do not silence your light. The universe is already responding to you. The frequency has shifted, and you, yes, you, are becoming the pulse of change.